Y'all, welcome back to Kentucky Fried Wargaming, where two guys who aren't qualified to talk about anything decide to talk about a game with hard math and chance. I'm Joe.
And I'm John.
And we are continuing on with our faction focuses, and so far so good. We're still fairly early in the process, so we're getting shaking the rust off, so to speak. And just in time, because we're about to hit John's Space Marine faction of choice when he's not feeling super edgy.
Yeah, well, that's okay. Step too far. Still a little edgy.
Comparatively, they are less edgy, but all right, fair. I mean, they wear hoods on their armor to look more intimidating. I mean, okay, fair. But John, we're talking about the Dark Angels.
We are talking about Dark Angels.
Before we can talk about it, John, I need you to give us a lore pitch for people who might be new to the faction or new to the game, or maybe you coming back and you just kind of checking up on things. What is the lore pitch for the Dark Angels, if you were someone who was maybe on the fence?
Okay, so the lore pitch for the Dark Angels has always been that they're this force of secretive warriors that are trying to hunt down fallen members of their monastic order to bring them to vengeance.
Sounds a little reclusive.
It's a thing, right? It's been the thing for the longest time. But recently in the lore, their dad came back.
Oh, buddy.
Lionel Johnson. Yeah, and so the lore is now fluctuating and changing, and some of those fallen Dark Angels have become redeemed, but still some of them are like actually people that need to be hunted. And the Dark Angels are now being questioned for what they've been doing while their dad was asleep.
I'm sure nothing is wrong. I'm sure it's all fine.
Yeah, there's all sorts of things going wrong there. But, like, tactically, as a force, what makes them interesting is, in the lore, they have different wings. And they have three major wings. The Raven Wing, which is all bikes and flyers and these, like, speed freaks, right? And then you've got Green Wing, which is your normal Space Marines, your tanks.
It's called Green Wing?
It's called a Green Wing.
Yeah. Okay. I thought it was a fancy name.
No. And then the third one is Deathwing, which is their inner circle of knights that are in Terminator armor and Gravis armor. And they are full of like the chapter master and all of the higher ups in the chapter. And the other thing that makes them interesting is that they are the first legion. They're the first legion that left Earth to storm the stars. And so they have a long and varied history. They have been around for a very long time. And they love plasma guns. Like, that's a thing they love.
And power swords, it looks like, from the models.
And power swords. And they're very themed off of Arthurian legend, off of, like, the idea of knights and knighthood. Not like the Knights Templar. We'll get to those later on.
Yes. Different faction.
But, like, they ride on their steeds. They came from a world before called Caliban, where they hunted chaos beasts on horseback in medieval armor with swords. Like, they are knights to the core. And that's just how it is. Joe, you tell me, Oath of Moment, how do you think these knights use Oath of Moment?
Okay. Great transition. Very pro podcaster.
No, it's not.
I mean, they use it how you think. Like, they're dudes who roll up on horseback and they say, "I'ma kill that monster." And they killed the monster, presumably, because they're still here. I'm a guess that if you're playing Dark Angels, you probably take that Oath of Moment and you use it similarly. You've got plasma threats, you've got swords, you've got knights of various types, you've got a number of threats. And they're pretty good at taking on the targets that they're sort of built to handle. But I think what Oath of Moment gives you is the ability to really make sure the job gets done. Because for the Dark Angels, that really is like the core of their fluff. That they will stand firm and do anything for the mission.
Yep. One of their big sayings is loyalty is its own reward.
Mm-hmm. And I think like their faction rule actually really like speaks to that. That for in the name of the mission and the objective, they will weather just about any storm. John, tell me about
and Grim Resolve is the name of this detachment rule. And what it allows them to do is even if they fail a battle shock test, they still have objective control stat. They don't go to 0, they go to 1.
Everything else
Means
in the
your
game,
opponent-
straight to 0.
Yes. Your opponent can't just go, you're off an objective now because you failed a battle shock test. You are still holding it. They have to come take it from you with models of their own.
Mm-hmm.
They can never just use a mechanic to take it away from you. It's yours.
Which is pretty cool.
And it's not very flashy, but it does mean that everything in your army uses that rule, and it doesn't impact your choices as much. And so you're using characters and unit synergies to determine your list instead of that rule.
Yeah. It doesn't push you down any one particular narrow valley. Some factions really say, like, you have to do melee or you have to do flamer. Here, you really get to choose, which I think behooves them. It just means you got to noodle on your list a little more when you're in creation. And there's a number of really cool War Scroll options that you get access to. But instead of going through every one of them and talking about every single knight at the round table, so to speak, I think for us, it's better if we just pick 2 of them for our series here. And we think that each of these are indicative of sort of the strengths and flavor of the faction, and that we also find really compelling. So John, what's your pick?
My pick, Asriel,
Ooh,
Chapter Master.
I mean,
of
he leads the whole
Dark Angels.
shindig. Like, it's gotta be him.
Yeah. Well, before him, right, Lionel Johnson, who is the Primarch, who is the dad. He is old man on the mountain.
Before he went to go get
he
milk.
Yeah, he has returned back from the Speedway with his Marlboro Reds,
He found 5%
And-
milk and came back.
and he has decided that he is going to do a bunch of other stuff instead of hanging out with his chapter, and Asriel still runs them. And Asriel has a War Scroll fit for a Chapter Master this edition. He has Lion's Wrath,
Mhm.
which is a fantastic gun. It does great. It allows him to be part of a range unit and not feel like he's just providing buffs. He also provides damage. The melee weapon really makes people not want to charge him because you can just tear something to shreds. Can he hold up against some of the more dedicated melee guys in the setting? No. But he holds his own, and that's enough.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't get a ton of abilities, but he does get leader, which lets him be in a unit. And that's the important part is because he makes a unit way better.
Yeah,
Right.
Whatever you put him in is now going to be swinging for the fences.
Yeah. First thing, he's going to give any unit he's in sustained hits 1. That means more shots. You can put him in Hellblasters, Plasma, more shots, more better.
Many much more better.
It do good.
MF.
Then beyond that, you want to do stratagems. Dark Angels can be tricky sometimes. You want to use some tricks here and there to try to ease the wheels on some things. And he gives you more CP to do that. He generates a CP every turn.
Which is huge, especially in this edition. If you're like a returning player, there's not a lot of command points to go around compared to some of the previous editions. You get 1 per turn, period. So him being able to come in and give you an extra is huge.
One of the biggest things he does, this is why I think it's something like Hellblasters, he's great. He provides a unit in a 4-up invulnerable save. It's amazing. Anything that shoots at him, he's just going to go, we have a 50-50 chance of not getting hit with that.
Mm-hmm.
Top of that, once per battle, when you know you're going to be getting a ton of mortal wounds. Maybe you've got like 3 Psyker units that are going to dump mortal wounds all over you. You can choose to get Feel No Pain 4-up against mortal wounds. Great. Phenomenal. It makes whatever unit they're in way more survivable, and they'll do more damage. 10 out of 10 will bring him in almost every Dark Angels list.
Yeah, I mean, it's a win-win. You can't say no to. For me, I mean, we're talking about like knights and stuff, right? Like if we're going to talk about Arthurian knights, I'm picking some knights. These guys are the knights of all knights for this faction. I'm picking the Deathwing Knights. You can see them on the screen. They've got a rock-solid 2+ save and a 4+ invuln, so even the biggest of monsters spawning from their planet Caliban, not going to crack their armor. Even further, they have a rule called Inner Circle, where when they're being attacked, you could subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of enemy weapons. Just it ruining their efficiency to try to kill you. So not only is your save good, not only do you have an invuln save, now you're -1 damage, and that's all helpful to stay alive. And I mean, to be honest, John, like if that was their only thing, it might be enough to take them anyway. But also, just like a little helpful is they have these colossal weapons, swinging like 4 or 5 attacks apiece, -1 rend, 3 damage a shot. They hit like a truck, and they're super hard to crack. And even more helpful is, like John mentioned, that Watcher in the Dark ability that can be used once a game to give them a 4-up feel no pain against mortal wounds. So if someone tries to like magic you to crack your armor, once a game you just basically get to say no. And
yeah,
that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
It's pretty good. You just put those guys in like the back, because they can deep strike, right? So you put them in the back of the board against your opponent, you go, deal with me. If you don't, I'm a wrecking ball. Or if you put them in the front of your army, you go, deal with me, or I'm going to break into your lines, because I'm a wrecking ball.
Yeah.
Like, anywhere you put them, they're a problem. They're going to eat more fire than your opponent's probably willing to put into them. And they're just going to be very good. And in this edition, where you want to bring characters and units, and some units might not seem as powerful without characters in them, they are really powerful even without a character.
Yeah.
So a character on top of that just really hammers home how powerful they are. But if you need a couple of units that don't get characters, you can just pick like 1 or 2 units of those, and just they're huge threats. They're like 5 walking characters themselves.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's how I would use them, as sort of like independent operators. Like you could use them as bodyguards for a particular character, but I think they do so well on their own. You just deep strike them somewhere else, and they don't need help. They're fine. They'll fight their way out. And I mean, that is the bulk of what we talk about here on the show, but we really like to go a little further and take all of this and bring it home with a little bit of advice on what you can practically do to kind of help yourself a little bit without having to sit through a whole lot of video and rules discussions. John, it's your faction. What's your piece of advice for someone who might be an aspiring Dark Angels player?
So my piece of advice I can give you is to not focus on one of the wings solely.
Yep.
Right?
That's mine.
You don't want to just bring Deathwing. You don't want to just bring Ravenwing. You don't want to just bring Greenwing.
No one's bringing just Greenwing because it has a terrible name.
It's also just Space Marines.
Ravenwing, Deathwing, Greenwing. Like, what?
Yeah, Greenwing. But yeah, like, you want to bring Intercessors, right?
Yeah.
For objectives from the Greenwing.
God,
you want to bring Deathwing Knights from Deathwing.
Deathwing
so
is
that
cool.
they can slam into stuff. And you want to bring the Ravenwing to reach out and touch them.
Yes.
Right? You want to diversify what you're bringing in the list so that you can engage on multiple fronts in multiple avenues and multiple ways and make your opponent have to make really bad decisions while they're fighting against you. This is not an army that's going to win with overwhelming firepower. This is an army that's going to win by outmaneuvering your opponent.
Yeah, that was my same advice, is to have a multi-pronged assault utilizing your different wings. Rather than just going like whole hog into one of them. You know, if you've got sort of the Green Wing holding the line somewhere, sitting on the objectives, you've got Deathwing deep striking or bolstering your weak points, and then you got some Raven Wing flying in or biking around the side, with all the plasma, that could be a hard thing to try to answer, especially for slower armies. And I think in that is how you learn to get experience and, you know, find the victory in Dark Angels, as opposed to some of the other Space Marine factions. And while I think we've covered most of everything you need to know, if y'all are out there and you have some more questions that you don't think we addressed here, feel free to share it with us in the comments below or reach out to us directly on social. They're always open. We love hearing your feedback. And we'll try our best to maybe follow up on this, given that John plays them, and maybe we'll talk about them long form eventually. That nod is very telling. Circles
I'm
within,
already preparing.
circles within circles, as they say.
Yes. Join the inner circle. Message me on Twitter.
For now, that's been all of our opinions. Bonafide Kentucky Fried. We'll see y'all on the next one. God, Green Wing. The Green Wing.
Green Wing. It would only be funnier if their name was Middle Wing.